Okay, Mike, how does an Idenics session work?
Well, basically, the person's coming to me with whatever issues they want to work on,
Okay,
and I ask them questions that get them to look until these things are cleaned up for them, until they're resolved.
okay,
Okay, that's at the very bare bones. Okay, it's a one-on-one
ah,
methodology
okay,
where the person is telling me what's going on with them, and I'm asking them questions to get them to look within themselves to find the answers within themselves. Okay,
got it.
that's the basics of it.
Okay, okay,
Okay, now how that people say, well, how is that different than say therapy? Okay,
sure, yeah,
some self-improvement thing because that's what they're doing there. They're just, it's one-on-one, and it's just I come to them and they do what they do. Okay. Well, probably the biggest difference is in terms of the application of what I do in that one-on-one basis.
mm-hmm,
In that the subject is that in that Idenics is completely non-judgmental, non-evaluative, without any even suggestion, advice, or opinion. In other words, I'm not giving them any kind of opinion, any advice, or anything. What this is it's based on a very old philosophy that's been around for eons and given lots of lip service, but virtually no application. Okay, which and most people would agree with this that the people are unique and different, and the answers they seek are within them. Most people say, "Oh yeah, sure." Most therapists would agree, but self-improvement, where do you go where that's applied? Because everywhere one goes for assistance, somebody's got answers for you. Somebody's got suggestions, something for you. That's not Idenics. We don't have anything like that. If the answers are within the individual and they're unique and different, how would I know any of that? It's then just a matter of that individual being able to access those answers, so to speak. So I'm a facilitator. My one-on-one is a facilitation to help that person to access what has previously not been accessible. Okay. So that's the first part of it, which is that's the application, right? Okay, which is unique in that way. So then it's a person. Well, what do we do then? Okay, how do you do that? What are the types of what is these things? What is these questions? What do I do? Okay. Well, I at that point I usually explain something to them as far as this of what we're doing. What's the job of the client and what's my job? Okay. In this process. Okay. And 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 it's I make a distinction between two things, thinking and looking. In that the one thing you can say about anybody who's had an issue in their life, an unwanted condition like this, is they've done a lot of thinking about it, a lot of speculating, a lot of figuring, a lot of cogitating and ruminating. And people they've gone to for assistance have done the same kind of thing cogitating, thinking, figuring, that sort of thing. Okay, so that's a great. It's not that thinking is bad. Thinking is an ability when it comes to building an addition onto your home, figuring out how to do that, or figure out a mathematical problem. It's a great tool. But in this work, and what we're doing, it doesn't have any use. Not really. The tool that we're using I refer to as looking, and looking is simply noticing what is there. It's just as simple as if I ask you to look at the floor, tell me what you see. Well, there's a piece of string, there's a bug. That's looking, just noticing what's there. And that's all I want the person to do. And my question, I ask a person a question. I don't know whether they're going to have an answer to it. I just want them to look. And if they look and they see something, great. If they don't, I got plenty of questions. Okay. So my job is simply to get the person to look. That's
huh.
all. Okay.
So like
So
it's not that the bug is walking on the string and that must mean that I've got ants somewhere coming in the house. That would be all like
yeah,
thinking, right? That would be the
right.
thinking part.
Or figuring out or maybe even a better example is I ask a person, if I ask you a question like, in the room, what are three objects, the room you're in, what are three objects that are red? Well, you could do maybe one of two things. You could close your eyes and picture the room as it was when you walked in and go, let's see, I think there was some red in that picture. Maybe there was a red pen on the desk. Or you could just open your eyes and look around. What would be easier?
Okay.
That's looking.
Got it.
That's all. Notice what's there. That's how simple this is.
Okay.
And so that's all I'm doing is getting the person to do that. Now, every question I have is just another way of saying, have a look, have a look, have a look. Okay. But there's no evaluation. There's no a judgment. I'm just getting them to look at what is actually there.
Okay. So
And
it's
that's
not
all.
like, it's not that the ant on the floor is bad.
No,
It's just an ant on a floor.
yeah, what they see, what it means to them, and what they see is what they see. In other words,
Yeah.
that's the whole point.
Okay.
And that's how that's really what you're doing. And things that maybe hadn't been realized before, seen before, they see. And that sometimes then things can come apart that have been stuck. Okay. This thing, yeah, like we talked before about stuck and automatic, that's the thing. How do you get things unstuck? How do you get things off automatic? Looking. Okay? That's it. At some point in a person's career, when this condition, whatever it is, had to start somewhere, right? And where it started, well, that's where it got stuck. That's part of what happened. Is it got stuck? It went on automatic. Okay, I can get into more detail about that, but at another point. But that's basically what's happening. Okay, and so if by getting a person to look, things can come off automatic. Things can get unstuck. Okay, okay. So that's one thing. Then it's a matter of then just, well, why does that happen? Okay. How does that occur?
Why does what happen?
Yeah, things get stuck at that time.
Why did they get stuck at that time?
Yeah.
Sure.
What's, because all these things, when they start, a person had to have some reason for doing it. And when it began, there was something that it accomplished. Okay. Whatever that stuck condition is,
Right.
at some point it was a winner. At some point, at some point it worked.
Oh, I see.
And that's fine. It worked at that time. But if it got stuck and went automatic, well, then it might come up later in similar situations, similar circumstances, but it's no longer appropriate. That's
Right.
why it's now unwanted.
Oh,
You
right.
see?
Yeah.
For example, if a person has this issue with, say a person had an issue with anger, and it's really bad, and he ends up doing, like hitting his wife or kids or something, and I mean that's definitely not appropriate, and the person knows it, and he's trying to resolve it, but it's stuck. You say, well, how could that have ever been a winner? How could it ever? Believe me, at the bottom of it, they all were. Say this guy was in the war. He's on the top of a hill, and all of his buddies are gone. They're dead, and the enemy's coming up the hill, and reinforcements haven't arrived, and he's going to die. And somehow he generates a rage that gets him through the night until reinforcements arrive. That's a winner. But say it gets stuck. And that anger, that rage comes out another time, so it's not appropriate.
Right.
Okay.
Sure.
See? So, and that's why it's now considered unwanted, and that's why the person's sitting in front of me.
But relating back to something you said in a different clip, it's not that the guy can't ever be angry once it becomes
Right.
unstuck. It's like he
Right.
could be angry or not, but it's just not on automatic anymore.
That's the whole thing. Like the example I had been giving you about the guy who has to count every second story window in town.
Right.
Silly example. He could do it once we're done with it, but he doesn't have to.
Right.
Okay. So it's not, now to the person that's coming to me, anger's bad. Oh, I hate this. Anger's terrible.
Right.
But it's terrible in those circumstances. But to him, he wants to get rid of it. I don't know if people actually get rid of anything except the automaticity.
Huh.
Okay.
Uh-huh.
I mean, if you're getting beat up in an alley by three guys, it might be appropriate to get angry. But if your son spills his milk and you whack him across the room, that's not appropriate. But the
Yeah.
person with the issue, they can't not do it.
Right. Right.
Okay, that's the whole idea, you know.
Yeah.
So in other words, at the bottom of all these things
Huh.
is an ability. It was an ability to get angry and get rage and get him through the night at that time.
Huh.
But now it's stuck. It's no longer appropriate. So in Idenics, we have a different definition than the dictionary definition or accepted definition for the word aberration.
Okay.
Aberration is, you look it up, it's a defect. It's a mental defect.
Mm.
Well, of course it is in those circumstances, but aberration, we have a different definition. In Idenics, aberration is an ability gone out of control.
Okay.
Different way of looking at things,
Sure. Yeah.
right?
Hmm.
It's an ability at its base, but it's out of control.
Mm-hmm.
Once it's in the person's control, it's returned to an ability.
Hmm.
Okay.
Interesting.
I remember a movie in the 60s called Clockwork Orange,
Sure.
Malcolm McDowell.
Mm-hmm.
That's a perfect example of what I'm talking about.
Right.
Here's this tough that's out on the streets and he's doing all these horrible things and in this futuristic society that he was in, they get a hold of him and they program him in such a way that he can't get angry anymore.
Mm-hmm.
They fix him. So now they can release him back into societies and he's no longer a threat to people.
Mm-hmm.
Except now he can't defend himself and he's now the victim. That was the movie.
Huh. Right.
They fixed him, but they fixed him to where he can't do it.
Right.
All right. So the whole idea is, I don't know when we work with a person that a person gets rid of anything except the automaticity. Why would you really want to? But
Sure.
of course, the person doesn't look at it that way when they're coming in. They're looking at how terrible this thing is because they're looking at all the effects of their life
Right.
by having it.
Right. Interesting. So in a way, Idenics is sort of returning you to sanity.
Yeah. And being able to be determined of what you want to do.
Uh-huh.
To be able to have those abilities, but not have to. Yes, return you to sanity. Exactly.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting. Cool.